government manufacturing hub.
In the previous episode of the Make in India Summit, we saw a gripping panel discussion on the topic India as a global manufacturing hub.
We need to believe in ourselves, and we need to believe that this government is willing to hear, willing to engage.
This week, we bring to you highlights on how the Make in India initiative has contributed to the overall growth of the Indian economy.
Make in India is basically an initiative where we as government try to identify what are the things that need to be done to promote manufacturing in our country, and also to develop the various sectors, 21 sectors which have been identified. Of course, there are a number of issues that need to be addressed. For example, the predictable policy environment. We talk to a large number of investors, foreign and domestic, and one of the issues that affects them is that sometimes there are unpredictable regulatory and policy environment. We have tried to see that in last 2 years, since Make in India was launched, the government has tried to provide that kind of predictability. Not only from the government policies point of view, but also from the tax policies, and also we are trying to work with regulators to make sure that even regulations are simple and predictable. One example, of course, is that even now GST, when the GST comes in, that will be a big game changer for Make in India. We have also addressed the FDI policies in the last 2 years. There have been significant relaxation and liberalization of FDI policies. The results are there to see. We had largest ever inflow of FDI last financial year, $55.6 billion, with $40 billion of net foreign direct investment coming in. And the kind of facilitation that is being done now by Invest India and by the department and by the state governments, we can only do better than what we have done so far. If you look at ease of doing business, which is a big part of Make in India, we have moved 12 ranks in World Bank doing business report, but more important, both the central government ministries and the state governments and the regulators are doing a large number of things, taking initiatives to provide online systems, single window systems, to make sure that the physical touch points are gone, and there is cost of transaction, cost delay in time taken for getting approvals, etc., improves considerably. We are engaged with industry, with business all the time to find out what more needs to be done. And then we engage ourselves with the ministries, departments, and states to pursue those ease of doing business and regulatory issues. Not only that, we are also engaged with the existing investors, and particularly the foreign investors who are in India. We are looking at their problems as well as our own industry, domestic industry, and we take up very proactively with various ministries and departments. Another important part of Make in India is infrastructure. We know that our manufacturing climate has been affected considerably because of lack of good infrastructure. The public investment that is being made now in highways, railways, ports, inland waterways, dedicated freight corridors. For example, now it takes 14 days for goods to be carried by trains from Delhi to Mumbai. When this dedicated freight corridor comes into existence in 2019, for which work is going on at good speed, this will come down to 14 hours. Now this looks incredible, but this is the kind of infrastructure that we need if we want to reduce the cost of transactions. The recent Logistics Performance Index of World Bank that was brought out a few months back, where we have jumped considerably in our ranking, and that's a recognition by assessment by the foreigners who do business with India, and that shows the kind of improvement that is being made in the infrastructure and doing business. Of course, we need to do a lot more, and all the plans are there in place. Another area where we have done better than before is on competitiveness. We know that ultimately we have to be competitive. Our productivity needs to improve vis-a-vis our competitors around the world, and we all know that. While we need to do a lot, our ranking in World Economic Forum's Global Competitiveness Index has gone up by 32 ranks in the last 2 years, 16 in each year, which from any standard is a very good improvement. Once again, we all know that we need to do far more. But these are all very good indicators that whatever is being done is being assessed and being recognized around the world in the very important indices brought out by various agencies like World Bank, World Economic Forum, and WIPO. There, we have also moved up considerably in Global Innovation Index, where we were actually slipping. Though we have made some improvement, but we are not satisfied with that. We have set up a committee consisting of industry, academia, and government agencies to find out what all we need to do on innovation. We are now a very major R&D center for companies around the world, but we need to innovate. Our startup mission, Atal Innovation Mission, tinkering labs, incubators, and more and more investment in R&D, and of course, a much greater interaction between academia, industry, and R&D institutions are something that we really need to do to improve our technology, upgrade our technology to world standards, and of course, improve innovation as a whole. Another area is skilling. We need to provide skills to 400 million people in the next 7 years. The Ministry of Skill Development has identified through studies the requirement of skills in each sector. And now plans have been made and as to how those skill gaps are going to be addressed. What are the capacities now? What more capacities are required? What kind of investments are required to meet those skill gaps? And of course, all these skills have to be feeding into the industry needs. We don't want to skill people where it doesn't serve much purpose. So all this are basically components of Make in India, but the most important thing I would say is the mindset. Today the government is determined to provide a business-friendly climate. I think the mindset is changing now fast, not only in the center, but also in large number of states. I think that is really the best news. The willingness to hear, listen, learn, and do something in a fast-track manner. On a positive note, we can look at Make in India in the last 2 years, that a lot has happened, but we have a lot more to achieve. Thank you.
The CEO of Niti Aayog tells us how India needs to achieve higher growth rates by becoming a global manufacturing hub.
So India is growing at the rate of about 7.5% per annum. Our challenge is to grow at higher rates of 9 to 10% over a long period of time, 3 decades or more, to be able to lift a very, very young population above the poverty line. India is passing through a window of demographic transition, which rarely happens in history. 72% of our population is below the age of 32. And there are very few countries in the world, when they've passed through this transition, have not created wealth. So this is a huge, huge opportunity for India. So what does India need to do to grow at rates of 9 to 10% over a long period of time? And do it on a sustained basis for 3 decades or more. So first and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, my view is that we've made ourselves a very, very complex, very complicated, and a very difficult place to do business in. We've, over the last 68 years, added a lot of rules, regulation, procedures, acts, and all this has made India very complex to create wealth. And if India needs to grow at high rates, India needs to dismantle a lot of these rules, regulation, procedures. We need to become a very easy and simple place to do business in. The last 2 years, this government has focused very strongly on making India easy and simple. A lot of simplicity has been brought in by Government of India. India has jumped up by 12 ranks in the ease of doing business. We need to do much better over a period of time, but we've jumped up. Now, India is a very large country. We are bigger than 24 countries of Europe. So a lot of action is in the states, actually. So how do we make states easy and simple? While the Government of India is focused on this, it's important that every single state where investment are coming in become easy and simple. So they need to be challenged. And one of the things we've done last year was to challenge the states We challenged them in a very big way on 100 points. There was a huge competition. We said we'll rank the states. We'll name and shame the states. So over a period of 1 year, every single state competed on this. We ranked the states. We put it out in public domain. Last year, Gujarat came number 1, but there was heavy competition. Andhra came number 2. This year, we are doing this on 344 points. But let me assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that this year, Gujarat will find it very difficult to keep the number 1 position. Andhra will find it very difficult to keep the number 2 position, because Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Karnataka, Telangana, all are competing very heavily. They've competed amongst each others to make themselves easy and simple, and therefore a lot of work on ease of doing business has been done. A lot of bureaucratic mindsets have been changed. A lot of this will happen in due course as we go along, because after all, there's been a 68 years legacy of controls. So this is one, make India easy and simple. Make it very simple for people to create wealth. Number 2 is that we are in a globalized world. And because we are in a globalized world, goods get designed at one place, innovation takes place in another place, manufacturing takes place in a third place, and assembly takes place in another part of the world. And because you are in a globalized world, if you're not an integral part of the global supply chain, it'll be very, very difficult for India to grow rapidly and become a manufacturing nation. India still has, almost 60% of our 65% of our GDP comes from services sector. No country in the world has grown for long periods on the back of services sector. If your manufacturing sector doesn't account for 25% of your GDP, it would mean that you have bypassed the process of industrialization. You've become prematurely, you've bypassed it, and therefore you'll lose this opportunity to create jobs, and in the long run it'll be hugely detrimental to India. You will not be able to just grow and create jobs, and therefore manufacturing is critical. And you can't do manufacturing till you're not a integral part of the global supply chain. So in the last 2 years, India has opened up its economy in a very big way. We've opened up defense, we've opened up railways, we've opened up insurance, pension funds, e-commerce, everything we've opened up. Other than multi-brand retail, India's opened up just about everything. And actually, in reality, India is one of the most open economies of the world today. And India's foreign direct investment has grown by 53% at a point of time when globally FDI has fallen by 16%. So India's FDI has boomed, and India today is the #1 FDI destination in the world. We need to keep pushing this limit up. We need to bring many more companies who have not invested in India. We need to keep marketing up, keep doing brand marketing, keep getting more and more companies to invest in India. So FDI, we've done one very well. We've become a very integral part of the global supply chain. That puts a lot of pressure on your domestic industry to bring technology, do innovation, keep expanding. But no country has also grown for long periods on the back of foreign direct investment. It's not possible for India to do 3 decades of growth on the back of FDI. You can do it for 2 years, 3 years, so on. Essentially, India has to grow on the back of Indian entrepreneurs, Indian companies. You have to make them world class. They need to grow and expand. And that bit of process is still work in progress of ensuring that our banks' NPAs are knocked out, ensuring that bank credit starts flowing to Indian companies, ensuring that Indian companies start manufacturing in a big way, ensuring that they expand, and that is something which is still work in progress. So we've opened up, FDI has increased, but the part of the work is to push our own companies. The third point I want to make is that there's a very different energy, vibrancy, and dynamism as far as young Indians are concerned. There are a lot of young startups who've done very well. We have close to about 19,000 startups. Their value is close to about 75 billion. By about 2025, my vision is that we'll have close to about 100,000 startups. Their value will go up to about 500 billion. And therefore, my belief is that young India is demonstrated that there's a different energy, vibrancy, dynamism, and they can take India forward rapidly using technology. So the fourth thing which I would like to say is that India is the only country in the world with 1 billion mobile. We are the only country in the world with 1 billion biometric. By 2024, we'll probably be the only country in the world with 1 billion smartphones. And what will happen is that now that you have universal payment interface, and universal payment interface is like a highway without a toll. So on the digital world, you are actually able to, with your biometric on a mobile phone, you are able to get all your payments done. You don't need ATMs, you don't need debit cards, you don't need credit cards, you don't need POS machine. All this will become redundant. India has the possibility of becoming totally a cashless, paperless society by 2025. We'll be the first, we have the potential to be the first cashless, paperless society using just biometric, a mobile phone, and universal payment interface. And there'll be many more competitors to universal payment interface, and therefore the spread of digital technology with the back end linked to banks will be enormous. And therefore technology will be the big challenge for India on how to take it forward. And this will open up vast possibility of Make in India using just digital technology. The next point I want to make is about innovation, and India's becoming a more and more innovative society. Many of us don't realize, but unless and until Make in India has to converge with design in India, it has to converge with innovate in India, it'll be very difficult for India to grow rapidly at high rates for a long period of time. The value doesn't come in manufacturing. The value comes in innovation. The value comes in design. I mean, out of $400 on every mobile phone, if you look at it, $350, $360 is taken away by the innovator. And therefore, it's important that we become a great nation for innovation. And much of that is happening in Bangalore and Hyderabad. Over the last 4 years, almost close to 1,500 companies have relocated their manufacturing bases into Hyderabad and Bangalore. If you look at a company like Renault, in its 118 years history of being a European company, it has never innovated and designed a car outside Europe. Never ever designed a car outside Europe. 2 years back it came, it innovated, designed, manufactured a car in Chennai. Today it exports it to almost 62, 63 countries across the world, the Renault Kwid. Hyundai came in looking for the domestic market, but today it exports almost 50% of its production to about 123 countries across the world. So people, it's important to understand that Make in India is not about just the domestic market. Nobody just manufactures for the domestic market. You can't become a big nation by just producing for the domestic market. No country in the world has grown without looking at the world. Japan, Korea, China all looked at export, and therefore it's important that India thinks big in size and scale, is able to use the domestic market as a springboard for exports. And we must, at least all young Indians must look at penetrating global markets. It's also important to understand that the value you get on domestic market, almost 10x that value you'll get in the export market. So unless we don't do scale, size, and efficiency, it'll be very difficult to penetrate global markets. And the point that is very critical is that when we do manufacturing, it's important to talk about quality, it's important to talk about efficiency. India must become a nation which is known for its quality. Unless we don't embed our manufacturing processes with world-class quality, with world-class efficiency, and bring in productive efficiency into our manufacturing process, it will not be possible to grow at high rates. It will not be possible to become a manufacturing nation till you don't bring in quality and efficiency into your manufacturing process. No country in the world has been able to do it. So India needs to reorient its manufacturing, bring in quality, bring in international standards, focus on bringing in restructuring, re-engineering the complete manufacturing process so that you are able to capture increased productive efficiency. And that is important to my mind. It's the key. So the last point I want to make is that if India's ambition is to grow, do Make in India, grow at rapid rates over a high period of time, you know, very few countries, and it's the difference we must understand. What is the difference between growth, which is we are growing at 7% per annum. If we keep growing at 7%, what happens? You know, in 2032, our per capita income right now is $1,582. $1,582. You keep growing at 7% year after year, year after year, year after year for till 2032, you will take your per capita income to $4,000 US. 4,000 US dollars. If you grow at 10%, the power of compounding, the compounding power of growth is so enormous that you would have taken your per capita income to $6,800, and you would have eliminated poverty from India. You need to eliminate poverty, and with per capita income at $6,800, nobody would be poor in India. Nobody will be below the poverty line. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
It's true that India is a tough market to crack for new products, especially if you're creating a new category from scratch.
You've got millions and millions of people here who are willing to buy that product. The problem starts is when you start manufacturing in India, the cost is very high.
What is the criteria which makes you a successful company? So far, it has been pure economic value. And I think times are changing, and very soon we will have to take on board that what is the economic value you are adding and what is the social value you are adding.
We must all recognize that ensuring safety of food that is available for 130 crore Indians cannot be an individual organization or individual's responsibility. I think food businesses have a big role to play